Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back.
That was weird. The microphone got turned off, so yeah. They hate when we talk about certain subjects.
We do end up in a little bit of trouble, but sometimes it's just worth it.
Well, it's our mission, so this is why we are here. Please do subscribe to both channels, Evolutionary Energy Arts and also EEARTS. Each one gets unique videos up. We want to thank our Patreons. We couldn't do it without your support at Patreon and Ko-Fi. Ko-Fi, you could do a one-time donation to support the channel, or you click over here for monthly, and it'll run every month, and it's done in increments of $5. Coffees. And yes, we do like coffee. There was a question somebody had in the last video and said, what do you feel about coffee? Well, we both like coffee, and Cindy takes a little bit of coffee with her cream, and I take mine black.
I know it has to be a certain special creamy color too. And if it doesn't make that color, I don't really like. I'm a little picky with the coffee, but one thing we are not picky about is we always go organic.
Always, because again, DDT, it's horrible, the stuff that's in. If you're drinking regular coffee and it's not organic, I would stop. It's one of the most toxic, poisoned crops on the planet. But simply just shift to organic coffee while we can get it.
Oh, if you do coffee enemas, it's really critical that you go organic, because our insides absorb up all that poison really quickly. So very important.
And distilled water.
And distilled water, yeah.
Absolutely. So, yeah, we got a lot to share with you guys. And boy, that was getting me thinking about something else. Oh, I was going to talk about your hair, because your hair looks wonderful. And, again, in this world, we could change our appearances quite a bit. And, of course, those in positions of power and authority can seriously change their appearances. And as we're going to touch on, maybe things are not always what they seem. But do check out Medicinal Foods, too. They also have some, as you see this right here, coffee break, energizing coffee substitute. Might be a little bit healthier. We can debate the merits of coffee, but it does have some benefits, absolutely. But there's lots of good things here over at Medicinal Foods. Make sure you use coupon code EEA. Gets you a discount, does support the channel as well. Biden jokes about his 2 aneurysms and saying doctors couldn't find the brain the first time. I don't think that any of us are going to argue with that statement.
No, I'm not.
No. And maybe that's been replaced.
I wouldn't be surprised.
And this is, again, this whole video is in response to somebody making comments about, did you ever look into Joe Biden and clones? And yeah, we have touched on this in the past. We've made reference to, which number is this that's up at the podium, today, because they're very different. They're very distinct. And of course, the powers that be are going to try to debunk this. They're always trying to debunk things that really cause the public to question reality. So Joe Biden clone conspiracy theory spreads on Facebook. This was from a year ago. And it says the latest bizarre conspiracy theory to circulate on Facebook claims President Biden may actually be a clone, because the real one's either in custody or no longer with us. And yeah, there's a lot of this that goes on. There's a lot of information. There is a lot of disinformation. And then there's a lot of covering your butt by the powers that be.
They do that quite a lot. And, they do a really good job about sending us to school and indoctrinating us, so that if we do question anything, we get made fun of, we get shot down. So there's a lot of that going on. When you start to think out of the box, though, things really pull themselves together.
Absolutely. So this one right here says, either time has changed, Biden's getting blackmailed, or there's a clone. Is he being paid? Is he just changing the way he thinks? Well, I mean, just when we look at things, people age. It's obvious. People age. But look at mannerisms, look at characteristics, look at some identifying features in a person, and just look. I mean, what's the vibration? What do you feel? And of course, we recognize that the word politician means paid for actor, basically. That's what else could it possibly be?
Right. It's short for paid for actor.
Yes, in service to the power structure.
Handbasket. We are desperately concerned about the circumstance relating to avian flu. We don't have enough vaccines. We don't have enough police officers. And we're going to debate the next 3 weeks, I'm told, gay marriage, a flag amendment, and God only knows what else. I can't believe the American people can't see through this. We already have a law, the Defense of Marriage Act. We've all voted, not where I voted and others said, look, marriage is between a man and a woman, and states must respect that. Nobody's violated that law. There's been no challenge to that law. Why do we need a constitutional amendment? Marriage is between a man and a woman. What's the game going on here? And handbasket.
Oh, how stances can change depending on what's needed of you at that moment. But you listen to the inflection in the voice. You look at mannerisms, just the energy too. And so this is later on down the line. This is a recent one.
And Neil Smith, an old buddy. Are you here, Neil? Neil, I miss you, man. I miss you. And Neil Smith, an old buddy. Are you here, Neil? Neil, I miss you, man.
Okay, so what do I look at now that I'm studying all these pictures? And I've seen this before. I look at the ear, for instance. And also just you feel the inflection. As you see here, he's got a lot of buddies of a certain sort. But that was the real one, not the clone. Interesting, is it not? And then, of course, we've seen just how good he is with his speeches, right? But make note of everything and the feeling.
It is noteworthy that the percentage of women who register to vote and cast a ballot is consistently higher than the percentage of the men who do so. End of quote. Repeat the line.
Oh, we could talk about Kamala's neck. We could talk about the CEO of Pfizer's neck. They're like from the same family there. They must have some inbreeding with frogs going on, or toads, one of the two, or maybe certain types of lizards. It's a fact. Do you guys remember Dolly the clone? 10 interesting facts about Dolly the clone. This was in the early 1990s. She wasn't the first mammal to be cloned. No. Cloning is a process by which a genetically identical individual organism is produced. It is prevalent in nature with organisms such as bacteria, insects, or plants reproducing asexually to produce clones. A clone has an identical DNA sequence as its parent. Several clones were produced in labs before Dolly the sheep, including mice, sheep, and cows. All of them cloned from the DNA from embryos. And it's interesting. Now, she was the first mammal to be cloned from an adult cell. But if it's out there in the public, that going back, over 30 years, cloning was a reality, don't you think that in some mad scientist lab somewhere, humans were cloned?
You know, it's just that we don't know all the technologies that are out there. We get a glimpse, and whatever we see, we can be certain that it's been perfected through our military. So if it makes it to the point where we can see it, we can use it, it's already far past anything we could really comprehend.
And going back to the same time period as Dolly, interestingly enough, Jana Mendez spent 27 years working for the CIA in charge of creating advanced disguises for agents to use on undercover missions. Once Mendez opted to use one of these masks that she had created when she met with President George H. Bush. And it freaked him out when she took the mask off because he couldn't tell. He couldn't tell it was a mask. It was so lifelike. It freaked him out. But he, obviously said, hey, well done. Well done. Here she is in 2018. So that's the other part of it, is we might be seeing actors as, portraying another actor that's, paid for by these true power brokers behind the scenes. You look at the patterns of cartilage. Those are not the same ears. Even though they're aging, they're drooping, gravity's doing things, And look at the inside of the ears. Yeah, they don't match up the same. And, again, people can have nose jobs. They could have all sorts of things. They could have Botox. When you look at Madonna, she looks like an alien now. She doesn't even look human anymore. Cher, kind of the same way. She doesn't really look human anymore. But when you see just the way certain things attach, and eye color, we've seen him blue-eyed, black-eyed, probably everything in between. Sometimes kind of glowing red coals in there. It looks starkly different.
It does. I mean, there's just really no getting around it. This is something that they can't hide anymore. There's too many different faces out there with too many resemblances that just simply don't resemble. It's to the point now where it's undeniable.
Even the hair is different. I mean, he was kind of going bald before his time, and then it seems like things changed. Now, yeah, there's all sorts of pharmaceuticals and different treatments can be done. Look at maybe this is the angle, but those ears certainly don't look the same. I mean, look, and it's like when you look at certain pictures that might only be, just days apart, it feels like we're looking at years at times. And there's some Bidens that are sharp and relatively sharp and relatively quick-witted, relatively strong and forceful. And then there are others that are feeble and just absolutely, see what we mean? I mean, that just seem like they have no juice on the battery at all. Like they're not going to make it walking 10 steps. Some of the mannerisms have changed. The ears have changed, as we keep pointing out. Now, this is saying he was executed by military tribunal. I don't believe that. I just don't believe that. The signature is different. Don't we stay with the same sort of signature typically, especially somebody in a public office that's signing things all the time? Absolutely, when we're talking about Draco-Draconian influences, when we're talking about people being overshadowed, that can most definitely change appearances and change the energy, change the vibrations. But we see so many differences, and it's just like here you can see that you would think this chronologically is before this. Look at those profiles. Look at those ears. Again, it just doesn't seem right. Moles change. Sure, moles could be removed. But why would you add a mole? Yeah, and then the telltale marks of perhaps some scarring from different operations. See what we mean? That's way back in 1987. Well, something seems to be working. That the hairlines are very different. Mm-hmm. This is straight, and this is receding on the sides. I mean, it doesn't look like the same guy. It just doesn't. And again, the signatures. What's really going on here? How many of them are there? Well, we had gotten that there was, I always get mixed up with Hillary. Was there 6 Bidens and 7 Hillarys, or was it 7 Bidens and 6 Hillarys?
Well, at the moment, there we do have 7 Bidens rolling around, with another thing in the making. So we're gonna see what comes of that. But it's not like they just stop making them. These things are made and they're put away, and they have to reform them. They have to rebake them. But you can see they do function. I mean, they function very well for being a non-human entity, really. It's just disgusting, and it's really awful to think about it, and it's hard to believe. But when you really put everything together and you add everything up, it's not so hard to believe.
Yeah, so, this is saying that that's just an actor, but no, this is really technology is what we're talking about. It is technology, and, this is part of, you got to just look at the bigger picture, take a step back. Alien abductions. What seems to be a common theme in alien abductions? Taking genetic material. How many times do people report seeing these cylindrical stasis containers and beings inside them? I mean, we've seen representations of that in movies, but that is another common theme. If you've gone through, say, the work of Dr. John Mack, there's so many people that have covered this over the years from that alien abduction part of it. It's all about genetic mutation. It's all about genetic manipulation. It's all about creating new species. This is just part of the whole big picture. And then when you go back and you read the Anunnaki stories, it starts to make sense. This has always been a planet that's being utilized for its resources. All various forms of organic resources. Human life, animal life, mineral. It's all of the above, as you see. And again, these are master geneticists. As we pointed out, our second chromosome is fused. So we have been tampered with. They're always sending us new modifications in the sky. We have declassified documentations about the weather modification. But then we also have, way back in 1972, I believe it was, declassified documentation came through in 1972 that there was 239 times that we were spread with biological and viral agents in the United States alone. The UK has admitted to the same thing. Always experimenting on humans. And is it CON as piracy, or is it just simply, it is what it is? And it's part of that greater reality. And it doesn't even stop with him. You can look at a lot of other people that are in positions of power and recognize there's little subtle differences that point to the fact that there's more than one entity playing the persona. Just like the sickle maker here. As you can see, differences in the bridge of the nose, the way the ears flare. How about the face, whether it's square or a little bit more angular? Yeah, again. So when they go into hiding, well, which one's going in hiding? All 7 going into hiding? 6, 5, 4? If something happens to one, they roll out another. And of course, it's the same thing with the land up above, which is being so brutal on its citizens. Again, politicians are highly paid actors. And it was Hillary 6 or 7? And there's actually one photo, which it looked like it got wiped away. Maybe you guys could find it, where she's standing next to Bill. And in one photo, she looks to be a foot shorter, and in the other photo, she looks to be about 6 inches shorter. And you could tell that it's not because of high heels. You could see the shoes.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I mean, they just really treat us like we are so numb in the mind. But once you start looking at this stuff, it's like you just kind of, it's a head scratcher at first, but then you start putting stuff together. It's like, okay. I get it. And this is what we have going on now. And so many more people are waking up to it.
And then there is truly that medbed technology. There truly is technology that can age regress. That all exists. And here we have Michelle. And you could see some differences there, and many differences. It's dramatic again.
I know. I mean, they just keep rolling them out like it's nothing.
Is it live or is it Memorex?
Yikes. Ew.
Ugh.
Poor lady.
That just says it all, doesn't it? So, did you know that Hitler and Goering resurrected an ancient species of super cows? Yes, we all know. Again, when you look to the Third Reich. And again, what was the focal point that was going on behind the scenes? It was all about experimentation, genetic experimentation. When we look to why were they so ahead of us at the beginning of the war, well, we find that they met with some extraterrestrials, interdimensionals, inter-Earth beings that gave them technologies in exchange, again, for what? Well, Loosh, creating all sorts of pain and suffering, but the Loosh is an energetic smorgasbord, so to speak. It's a buffet for certain entities. When you create the conditions of global conflict, war, pain and suffering, all that, that brings about emotions and energies and feelings that other beings can actually live off of. And so there are beings in that lower fourth astral realm which do feed off of the misery, pain, suffering here. It's just part of the circle of life, so to speak, in a very, very negative sense. And so, how did they get the technological advantage? It was through non-human beings. And what did they do? They created all sorts of experimentation. And where did they end up? They ended up being, many of them, taken into the U.S., into very high positions in science and military, and even in the political realm as well. And so, we also see the Russia did take in some of their scientists, some of their top brains as well. So they infiltrated all of the power structure again, and I should say the USSR at that point in time. It was before the seeming breakup of the USSR that this all happened, Operation Paperclip. And, they did show their technological advantage with literal flying saucers that they had built, all declassified. And we had the Battle of Los Angeles and we had the Battle of D.C., the overflying of D.C. to show their technological superiority. And Admiral Byrd discovered it for himself when he went down there with a whole bunch of military power and came back with his tail between his legs. But again, Germany, Italy, Japan might have lost World War II, but not really the NAZISs.
No, I mean, what this is this is kind of like an energy that's simply rebranding itself. And it's always sort of kind of been there. It's just they're making it look a little different now.
Absolutely. And you could even, if you want to take it from the point of view that the U.S. and its allies, at the end of 1945 and all were, white coats, so to speak, white hats. You could look at it from that point of view and say that they were poisoned by what they took into the system. But the reality is it goes much deeper than that. Much, much deeper. Can you imagine? Hey, I want to introduce you to my friend there. Yeah, he's a 9 foot tall, kind of humanoid gray alien. He's got some really great ideas on how you could ramp up military production, but he just needs some humans to experiment on. And by the way, we're going to be borrowing some of your cattle in certain ranches in Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, but we'll place them back. Of course, they'll have circular holes in them and their glands will be removed.
Oh, the party tricks.
Yes, absolutely. 7 most notable, yes, that left and went to South America. In some cases, it took 4 or 5 decades to bring them to justice. And this is also just, I'm not going to go into this, just to let you know that, again, the real power brokers, even if they are really just actors, often they still kind of escape the scenes. They exit stage right, and they're not really seen again. Or maybe they are seen again. And so here you see CIA suspected, yes, Hitler was alive in Colombia until at least the 1950s after surviving World War II. And there's a photograph that was taken 10 years after 45 when he was supposedly, he supposedly left the world by his own hand, but doesn't appear to be the case. That does definitely look like him. And this photo was taken in 1955. And again, it's well known that many fled to Argentina. And then again, you had New Schwabenland in Antarctica as well, and secret military bases there, where they can openly do all sorts of party tricks, so to speak. And it gets even more interesting than that. The FBI admit they knew Hitler was alive in 84. And there were more than one of him as well. So this is nothing new. There's several Bidens, there's several Hillarys and Bills, and it goes on and on and on. And there was more than one of him as well.
Right. So these things, they keep happening and they keep rebranding themselves to look like something different. But really, it's just the same information molded into a slightly different picture.
So this is saying that after he fled to Paraguay via Argentina, he hid from public life and he actually took a girlfriend there. As you can see, he's got his arm around her. And he wanted to maintain appearances that he didn't have that ideology, and he had a different last name. They still called him Adolf, but Adolf Leipzig. And so, again, what is the reality? But then when we look to it, we do see that there are declassified documents that definitely make you say, huh. So, what is really the reality? Is this the truth? Well, from what we've gotten from our guides is, there's definitely many clones, and there's definitely there's multiples of many of the leaders that we see out there.
There are, and they have many different ways to portray their actions, to allow themselves out in public. It's really difficult to comprehend. I think that's the big part. How do you explain this to people if they're still in the mainstream? And the answer is you just can't. It's something that you kind of watch. You have to put it together yourself, and then this is what we have.
As always, guys, look forward to your comments. Like, share, subscribe, share, and wake up others to the bizarre reality of the world we find ourselves in. Let's change this paradigm. God bless and namaste.
Namaste.